Welcome everybody, you're watching Mr. Fugu Data Science. Today we're going to work with the retail sales data that we did a few videos back. I'm going to put a card above so you can see those plots as well for time series data. As always, hit me up on Instagram and Twitter, and if you would like to help support the channel, feel free right here. Thank you to the recent subscribers and viewers, I greatly appreciate it. Let's get into this. Here's the imports that you're going to need if you would like to follow along, and here's the data that we're working with once again. We're interested in the items that were sold, which is called description. We're creating a new column between quantity and unit price, multiplying those together to create our sales total, and then we're going to extract as well our countries. Creating our new column sales total, we just multiply the quantity and the unit price. Then we want the top 10 items that were sold. In order to do that, it's quite lengthy if you look at this. So I first subset these data. After I subset the three columns that I was interested in, I performed a group by, which would take the country and then the sales total in that order. The next step was sorting these data by the sales in descending order. So we get the top 10 items that were sold with the total amount or total sales for each one of those items and the corresponding country with each item. So you notice that this is a nested table right here. The outer portion is the description, and then your index values are the country and the sales total. This is a multi-indexed data frame or Panda series. Notice that the United Kingdom has multiple items. So we save that information into some made-up variable named GG in order to call these data so we could do some formatting. I convert the indexes into a list which provides these tuples, which are your country and the sales amount with respect to each item description. Next step we do is we take the description from GG and we need to iterate through it to take our list of items. So now we have 10 items which are from our list. We will then take that and create a data frame with the column names from that tuple. We will also take the items that were from the list that we created above from our description. We will concatenate these all together here, and we will save it under this variable FF, and then we will sort by the country's name, which is this, what you see right here. So we're getting closer to what we want for plotting. You'll notice that France only has 1, Japan has 2, and then there's 5 additional for the UK. So what is this showing me? The top 10 items that were sold with their sales and the country that it corresponded to. If I'm using these countries for a nested bar chart, then we're gonna have an issue because it's not going to line up for the items. Since the items are what we're going to use for the x-axis, we will like to instead figure a way to map these sales. Let me explain this. What I did was I created a default dictionary allowing me to map the country to its actual items that were in a list now. That's what I did here by converting the sorted dictionary into values, which looks like this. And then I just manipulated it through this default dictionary, which creates this. From there, we need to take the unique names from the items that were sold. And to make this match up, what I did was iterate through this right here. Since it's a dictionary, I called it as items, which I iterated through the dictionary list from above, converted this as tuples. From there, I went inside the first indexed item, which is our list, and I did a set difference. I did this because there's 10 unique items, but each country only has maybe one or a couple of them, but not all of them. So I did a set difference, and then I created a dictionary to store the values. I then made sure to create another dictionary with the country that we're iterating over, and instead using the length of each nested portion that we're iterating through, taking the length of the set difference. And then I'm doing the same thing for the sales, and I'm just multiplying it by 0 because there's no sales. And then this is what you end up with right here. That's what it prints out as. So you have the first country, which is France, and these are all of the items that were not inside of it for the initial data frame that we started with. And then we're going to have all the sales that correspond to it. And then we did the same thing for Japan Netherlands, and UK. But there's something that you'll end up seeing that's interesting. After we do that and we create a new data frame, it's nested and we have to use JSON normalize that I've used in many videos. You can see the card above for some of my JSON parsing videos. And after you do that, you're going to notice one thing. You end up pulling out the nested portion of the items, country, and sales data, and that's what causes your new names for your columns to have that dot notation because it extracted the nested portion out of it. But now we have to get rid of this list of each one of our columns, and that's why we use the explode, which is here, which cleans up our data set. So now we have 25 entries to append to our original data set. So we take that data and we reset the index for everything, and then we rename the columns, and I print it off. So if you wanted to see everything, that's what it looks like for all of our columns. So we're getting closer to what we want. So we append to the end of the data frame these new rows that we just made. And I did something here that's quite interesting. I sorted all of this information by these two columns. The first column will be in ascending order. The second one will be in descending order. So the countries was sorted in alphabetical order, then descending order for all of the sales information, and then the items stayed the same. So we're one step closer to what we want. So we iterate through the country names, and then we append our group by items, taking the sum of the sales data. And that's what we have here, which is going to be used for doing our nested bar chart plot. You're going to notice this right here. This had to be used because the ordering of our plot doesn't add up when we do something next. We're going to come right back to this and this portion here. When you do this plot, we're creating our X labels, taking our Y, which is our nested list of the sales data, creating here the plot size, iterating through this. Here's our X, here's our Y, and here's the labels that we're going to use with respect to the country names. And then you need to remember here our iterators so we can match our legend properly. And in this case, you do need an alpha value to make a somewhat translucent plot, and you're going to see why in a second. Just like last time, we need to label our y-axis, and this is in Great British Pounds. Do our title, the position of our legend, rotate our ticks for our plot labels. I created a grid formatting, and then this right here is used so we can put the actual values from the plots corresponding to each one of our labels above the bars. I had to split this up to do the first 5, then 5 through 10, and then positioning each one of the X positions here for the text formatting, and it's trial and error. And you plot it out and it looks pretty cool, and this was extremely difficult to figure out, but it's a pretty cool plot. We have the top 10 items sold and the countries which correspond to it. So let's scroll down slowly, and you'll notice that this right here corresponds to 2 countries. That's why you needed that alpha value to be somewhat translucent. I had to iterate these piecewise from 0 to 5, which stops right here, and then from this one going here is 5 through 10. We'll scroll down some and notice that here's all of the items that we have for the outer portion for our x-axis, our 9 new unique values, but we have 10 of them because this one repeats for the Rabbit Night Light. All right, this is a very challenging plot, and I highly suggest that you go back over this. So each one of these, let go on top, let's scroll back up and go back. These values here will get you plotted correctly. But when you want to align everything correctly for your labels, you then need to go back and look at these one by one because they do not match the ordering from this plot. Your labels will be incorrect and you have to fix those. And it takes some time going back and forth to make sure these all line up properly. Then, to get this correctly lined up, you need to take the points that correspond to these and manually plug these in. Doing this through a function or mapping these efficiently is not easy. Feel free to do it on your own. And you noticed here's the ordered labels that we had to put in, which looks different than the X information that we have. But this is correct. I went back and looked. Now let's get into doing a pie chart, which is a lot easier with our data. Here's the sales totals that we just parsed out. I took these 2 specific columns. I did a group by country, summed everything together, and then took the sales. Let's look at this right here. So here's the nested chart that we have. Here's the outermost portion. Here's your index, which is your countries. And then you need to do sorting on this so we can get the top 10 countries of sales. So here's the countries sales right here, but we need to do some mapping to this. So we take our sales totals and then we create a tuple of each one of the countries corresponding to the sales. Then I create a data frame for the country and the sales, and then I just put it in descending order and take the top 10 entries. And that's what we end up with here, which is going to be used for the pie plot. So I decided to round the data so we can see that top 10 countries contain 97% of the data. That's why I set it up like this, because you have 37 countries doing a pie plot. It looks horrendous. This is for simplicity's sake. Adjusted the size for our pie plot, took the labels, which is our, you could think of this as your X, but it's your labels, and the sales data. This explode is going to be interesting. Pulls out each entry. We have 10 entries. So basically think of this as the first entry. I'm pulling out of the plot a little bit. The higher this number, the more it's going to be adjusted outside of the plot. You're going to see that in a second. We do this subplotting so we can adjust this pie plot for all of our label information. Let's do this so we can see this. We take in our sizes, which is the sales, the actual label name, do formatting for the percentages, and this explode is what is going to pull out each one of your wedges further from the plot, depending on how you adjust this sizing. Then this is how far your label will be from the actual wedge. Here's the distance of the actual adjusting the percentages. When you do the equal, it's going to give you a circle. When you start changing this, you start getting more of an oblong or ugly looking circle. Then you do your title and you print it out. So you're going to see this looks kind of goofy. We have really small percentages that are grouped together here. And in order to make this somewhat legible, I elongated this and made it highly exaggerated for us to understand what's going on, okay? This may not be exactly what you need, may be kind of ugly for a presentation, but it lets you know what these specific parameters are doing. So you can adjust these right here and move these left and right using this. This is moving these the labels for Japan, etc., and you could also rotate those. We could do this plot differently, adjusting the size, making it smaller, calling in our X and our Y's, the names of the colors manually, and then we can adjust the text that we want and do some rotation, as well as increase or decrease the radius of the circle. And you can do some formatting here for your country information, the amount of decimal points you would like, as well as zipping together your percentage and your country name as a new label that's taken outside, like it as a legend. And that's what's going on here, is you're creating your legend and zipping everything together, and it'll be illustrated better right here. So when you have something really ugly like this, what we did above can be utilized to help you out with this legend properly formatted. I think this would probably look a lot better for this kind of pie plot, considering you have a lot of really small values here. But that'll be the conclusion of this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you subscribe, turn on that notification bell. I hope this brought utility to someone. Feel free to hit me up on Instagram and Twitter, as well as if you'd like to help support the channel. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.